Hi guys, quick update. Yesterday, as we all know, the Fed increased interest rates by 0.25% from 2.5% to, from 2.25% to 2.5%. That's not a huge increase, but obviously it did affect the market and more gains were lost. Looking at the overall chart, this is the chart for the year. You can see, as I pointed out before, the lowest point of the year was the 23rd of March. And that was around the Chinese sanctions, I believe it was. So I'll have to clarify that. But this is where we are at the moment, and we are lower than the lowest point of the year so far. At the moment, we're on 22,973 points. The lowest point of the year prior to that was 23,533 points. Now, I'm paying attention to this because obviously it's one of the signs that we're looking out for in connection with the IPEC Go 2 video. But when you do compare the chart over a 10-year period, now 10 years is the time period since like the last downturn in the economy, so basically the last recession. This is back to 2009, 2008. This is when Obama came in as president. As you can see, the stock market was on a gradual increase throughout that time. We get to 2017, and obviously this is around where Donald Trump took office, so the stock market jumped quite a lot, obviously, because Donald Trump's a businessman. A lot of hopes were placed on him and the economy and the market in that sense. The economy's done well, not going to deny that, but as we know, it's all kind of like a bubble, so it's just waiting for the burst, and we could be in the process of moving towards that now. Over the 10-year period, you can see that the difference in the drop between like the beginning of the year and now compared to like 10 years ago, it's not that much. So obviously, if we see the chart start dropping down even further, going to the 20,000, 15,000 range, then there's a lot more need to be concerned. However, I don't think that the stock market is just going to plunge like that, like the IPEC Go 2 video suggests, unless something major happens. So the stock market is reactive to the event that takes place rather than, acting before the event takes place. Now you can see that a lot of gains have been lost over that time, but until something major happens, I don't think we're going to see that plunge down to 10 years ago level or below. So just keep an eye on it. Obviously, you guys have heard that the United States is pulling out of Syria. This is due to the confrontation between Turkey and the United States over the Kurdish forces, the YPG. Now, the YPG are seen by Turkey as a terrorist organization, and Turkey is preparing to launch an attack on them. And obviously, the Kurdish forces are backed by the United States. The United States and Turkey are NATO allies, so it really creates a huge complication. So it appears that after a conversation between Donald Trump and Erdogan, an agreement was reached where the United States would pull out of Syria. That does leave some issues, of course. Before they agreed to move out of Syria, they had put up observation posts near the Turkish border in an effort to dissuade Turkey from attacking the Kurdish forces. However, obviously, now the United States is going to pull out, and that's going to leave a void or a vacuum, in particular with the Kurdish forces, because they won't have the United States backing them up. So, Turkey and any other actors that would like to take them out pretty much have been given the green light to do so. This is obviously the story. US announces withdrawal of troops. It has already begun, so it's not as if it's a slowly evolving situation. It's immediate. So as soon as the order was given, things started happening. I don't know how long it's going to take to get all the troops out. They say there's about 2,000. That shouldn't take them long to get the troops themselves, but obviously you've got equipment and all those other stuff, so it may take a little while for them to actually leave. And obviously, as you can see, it's receiving a lot of backlash from various different places. One of those places is Israel, and obviously we know that in the Bible there's a betrayal of Israel, and I'm not sure that this is it, but this is certainly could be seen that way, because obviously pulling out of Syria gives Iran the opportunity that they may not have had before to advance even more. So now you've got Syria, Iran, and Russia in Syria without the United States as an opposing force. And obviously, Israel is not going to back down. Senior political and military figures in Israel have sharply criticized the US announcement of a military withdrawal from Syria. An opposition figure described it as a surrender, while a retired Air Force general said it was a move that could damage or would damage the reputation of the United States. Others said it would strengthen Iran, embolden Russia, create complications for Israel, and challenges for regional US allies such as Jordan. Now, obviously, after the US announced Syria pullout, Netanyahu says Israel will not only continue its actions against Iran, but it will increase its actions against Iran. They have some issues because obviously Russia has given Syria the S-300 air defense system, which they've deployed throughout Syria, and there's other complications like Iran dressing up as, Syrian forces or Russian forces. There could be confusion there, and we could end up with, a whole bunch of dead Russians rather than dead Iranians. Obviously, that causes more complications for Israel. They already had some tense situations over the downing of the Russian jet, which was done by Israel. That's why the S-300 system was put there to deter Israel from launching any more attacks on Iran in Syria. But obviously, with the United States pulling out of Syria and Israel still concerned about its interests, it's not going to back down, it's going to increase. So Putin says he agrees with Trump that ISIS has been defeated in Syria, which is not true, but that he doesn't know what a US withdrawal really means and he has not seen any signs of it. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said on Thursday that Israel will continue to act aggressively against Iran's attempt to entrench itself in Syria. Speaking alongside Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras, I don't know how to say that, and Cyprus President Nikos Anastasiades, you can see the word, at the 5th Israel-Greece-Cyprus summit in Beersheba, Netanyahu added that Israel continues its efforts to thwart the terror tunnels on the Israel-Lebanon border. And obviously, that's another situation Israel's got to deal with as well. Hezbollah digging tunnels in Lebanon through into Israel. So it does seem like Israel is surrounded by forces that would find a way to attack them, which is why they did their whole, as I said before, earlier in the year, they did their whole military drill with the United States, and that was preparing for an attack on all sides. And obviously that means that we're still looking out for situations devolving with Saudi Arabia. Obviously, around the whole Khashoggi killing, that seems to be in effect at the moment. The United States Congress has issued kind of like retaliation against Saudi Arabia, withdrawing support for the war in Yemen. So you're pulling, I don't know if they're going to pull troops out in that sense, but you're withdrawing support in Yemen, withdrawing support in Syria. It seems like the United States is withdrawing from the Middle East as a whole. And in that sense, it gives me the imagery of a tsunami. When a tsunami comes in, before it comes in, the waves or the water recedes. So we've all seen it, the images. You're on the beach, tsunamis come in, all of a sudden the water just rolls away and you're left with, depending on how big the tsunami is, hundreds of or thousands of feet, or, I don't know, you could even be left with a couple miles left of bare land, and then all of a sudden the tsunami comes in. It gives me that kind of imagery, withdrawing not all, but withdrawing United States forces from the Middle East, and then something bigger comes into the Middle East as like a tsunami, but not an actual tsunami, a metaphorical one. Here we have Iran and Turkey agreeing to step up their economic cooperation. So it does, again, it just causes more complications because Turkey and the United States, as I've said, is a NATO ally. Turkey wants to support Iran economically, where the United States wants to sanction them economically. So you get this clash between two NATO forces, and from there you kind of think what's going to happen. And in my opinion, as I said before, I feel like Turkey at some point in the future will switch allegiances. just it just makes sense where they're located, the deals and stuff that they're coming up with, the confrontations between the alliance that they're in and the alliance that they want to be a part of. So it's kind of crazy in that sense. The last thing I want to talk about is the war. So we all know about the war. We know that it was a campaign promise. I myself, I've already shown you guys earlier in the year the lack of effectiveness when it comes to just a wall. People climb walls all the time. I even showed you guys a picture of a car going over the wall just by using, like ladders on either side. Just not obviously normal ladders, wider kind of ladders, that kind of thing. Drive the car up on one side and drive it down on the other. People are innovative. They'll find ways around anything. A wall is not exactly a strong security structure. It may offer support to the security structure, but it's not a solution by itself. Because of that, we've got this situation now. So the potential government shutdown over the war, the $5 billion that Trump wants to spend on this war, it looked like Trump was going to sign the continuing resolution to keep the government open through February 8th, over Christmas and through February 8th. But he's receiving a lot of backlash from conservative media, right wing, basically kind of letting him know that if you don't get this done, you're going to be losing support. And Donald Trump doesn't have a lot of support around the country as a whole. 36% of the country have constantly supported him throughout everything throughout the 2 years. And obviously that's the people he plays to the most. So if he's being threatened with a lack of support from the only people that are supporting him, it does make me think that he's not going to sign the continuing resolution, and that we may in fact have a government shutdown, a partial government shutdown, which by itself it's not major. You don't lose a whole bunch of services. There are a lot of different services that shut down, but nothing that's really going to affect you that much over Christmas. However, that would mean that the likelihood of Congress being in Washington on the 22nd or the 23rd increases. Now, I don't know if there's like a set rule. No, they don't come in on Sundays. But Sunday is the 23rd, and it is a day I'm watching out for to see if there's anything, tsunami-like, earthquake-like, that all the scenarios we've been talking about. Before that is tomorrow, the 21st, and I'm looking out for any events around a volcano, particularly the Kilauea volcano, but there are others in my mind, like Mauna Loa, Stromboli, Kempe Fleregri, and Yellowstone, of course. So keeping an eye out for volcanic activity tomorrow, and if that happens, then there may be more things to come after that. Obviously, even if a volcano does erupt tomorrow, that doesn't mean that something is going to happen on the 22nd or the 23rd. It just means I'll be looking at it a lot more closely, scrutinizing it. I think that's everything. Most of that was about the situations going on in Syria and Iran and Turkey. Keeping an eye on the stock market, as I said, it is on a downturn, but it's not comparable to like 10 years ago. This is still up from there. So if we use 10 years ago as a measure for recession, depression kind of stats, then we're still above that. But we're keeping a close eye on it in case it does all of a sudden take a huge drop. There's a lot of things that could cause it to go that way. But probably the most major thing that would make it go that way is some sort of attack, like a 9/11 style event, tsunami, major earthquake, something like that, affecting. That's why I say the West Coast as well. I've always kind of had that West Coast theory first. Obviously, that's where Silicon Valley is. That's where a lot of the tech companies are. So if something affects all of that, then that would definitely have a major, major effect on the stock market. I have to check out when the stock markets are open over this period. I know that they close on Saturdays and Sundays. Most likely be closed on Monday because Christmas Eve. Obviously closed on Christmas Day. I don't think they reopen on Boxing Day, so there's at least 5 days where they're going to be closed. And if anything happens during that time, then if they do reopen, there would be a plunge. You guys, I'm hoping against it, praying against it, but being vigilant regardless. Have a good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and may the Heavenly Father bless you.